From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everybody. This is Kate Morton with WisPolitics, here with the Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. Today, I'm here to share an interview that I did with Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. He recently announced that he's joining the Dem primary race for governor. So here's what he had to say. All right. Thanks so much, County Executive Crowley, for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. So glad to be here.
Yeah, of course. So I think to start us off, you've just recently launched your gubernatorial bid in the Dem primary. Could you just tell me a little bit about why you decided to run for governor?
Yes. And again, thank you for having me. This is a really exciting time. I think it's important to recognize that, Governor Evers has been that steady, calm strength that we've needed here in the state, not only, leading us through the pandemic, but, protecting democracy and protecting many of our working families. And so, for me, for the past 7 years, not for the past 7 years, for 7 years, I spent time in the state capitol, working and not only getting an opportunity to understand what Madison looks like, but, getting things done and working with the state legislature. And for the past 5 years, I've been, leading the largest county in the state of Wisconsin. I represent close to 1 million people, which is a sixth of our entire state's population. And I also manage one of the largest budgets in Wisconsin, $1.4 billion budget. And since May of 2020, since I've been sworn in as county executive, not only did I lead our entire community through the pandemic, but we've tackled some of the biggest issues, things like public safety, public health, as well as fiscal recovery. We've been able to invest in small businesses around Milwaukee County, build more affordable housing across our community, while making government more accessible, cutting our carbon emissions also in half while delivering the largest property tax cut in Milwaukee County's history. And so I know that on day one, that I'll be ready to hit the ground running as the next governor of Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you mentioned some of the things you've been able to do as county executive in Milwaukee. But yeah, if you're elected, what would be some of your top priorities to improve the state as governor?
Well, I think the biggest priority is really figuring out how do we make things more affordable for, all families across the state of Wisconsin. Whether families are making more, they are getting less to this day. Things are getting more expensive. Prices are rising, rents are rising, and families are getting squeezed. And we have to find a way to really bring them some type of relief. And while, there's limited things that we can do, to provide that type of relief, especially with some of the policies we see coming from Washington, D.C., it doesn't mean that our state can't do all they can to help bring relief to families all across the state. One, we need to be focusing on how do we bring more good paying, family sustaining jobs, union jobs to every corner of the state of Wisconsin, and making sure that we're also fully funding our public schools at the exact same time to make sure that our children are not only ready for the opportunities that are available today, but how do we prepare them for the jobs of the future? And then, we see that healthcare costs are also rising. And so how do we make that more affordable as well as accessible for folks whenever and wherever folks need it? And so it's important for me not only to make things cheaper and figure out how our communities can move forward, but it's also important to go across this state, right? And talk to as many people as possible, letting them understand. And I'm not just here to work their problems out. I'm also here to listen, to understand, because I understand the struggle, but bringing them to the table so they can lend their voices to being a part of the solution as we move forward as a state.
Yeah, thanks for sharing some of those priorities. I also wanted to talk specifically. You recently mentioned the possibility of creating a blue ribbon commission on taxes if you're elected governor. And you said the state system is antiquated. So I was wondering, what do you want to change specifically about the way that taxes work in Wisconsin?
I think all of us across the entire state will say that, the state of Wisconsin has broken its promise. How we fund local units of government all across this state, no matter what city, town, or village you may live in. And also with, the fact that we've had so many communities across this state going to referendum, having to raise their own property tax to pay for things that matter most to them, like education. Right. And so it's important that we all recognize that the way that we fund our local units of government, like here in the state of Wisconsin, is quite antiquated. And it's about how we bring more people to the table to really lend voices and bring the political will to this entire state to make sure that we're looking at our tax code. I led the charge in making sure that Act 12, when we passed Act 12, that all communities, no matter its size, received more money back from Madison. And it gave them an opportunity to invest in things that matter to them, things like fire, police, housing, transportation, making sure to deliver the quality services that their residents depend on and rely on every single day. And it's unfortunate that while we were able to pass that and provide that level of relief, it did not solve all of our problems, particularly local units of government's problems, to pay for the services that residents absolutely deserve. And so it's important that we bring as many voices as possible to the table. There isn't a one size fits all solution when it comes down to funding and figuring out how we tackle the most pressing issues in our state. But there's no reason why we can't bring every community more voices to the table to figure out how we make sure that we continue to do our jobs as elected official and make sure that people can get access to the services they need.
So are there any specific tax proposals you would like to see to help local governments?
Well, I would always say there's an opportunity for us to continue to visit shared revenue. But there has to be the political will in order for us to do that. And so I do think that that's always going to be on the table. But again, it's about how do we tackle this together and continue to have more conversations.
Okay. Yeah, there are also already several candidates in the Dem primary for governor, including yourself, and we're potentially expecting some more to get in. So why should Wisconsinites support you over them?
Well, as Milwaukee County executive, I've also served in the legislature. And so I'm the only candidate in this race who have experience serving in the legislature as well as actually running a government. And the issues that we have delivered on here in Milwaukee County, these aren't Republican or Democratic issues. These aren't partisan issues, or these are issues that cut across every region and are affecting every community across our state. Being able to tackle our opioid epidemic here in Milwaukee County is something that we need to scale up. We've been able to reduce our overdose deaths by 30%. And that's something that we should be proud of, but we know that there's more that we need to do, not only locally, but across this entire state. We've been able to cut taxes, delivering the largest property tax cut in Milwaukee County's history, cutting our carbon emissions, giving people more access to more services that we provide through our no wrong door model of care, making sure that no matter how people enter our system, that we get them all the services that they need so they don't have to come through another door. They don't have to make another phone call. Those aren't just Milwaukee issues. Those aren't Democratic issues. Those are Wisconsin issues. And those are the things that we're going to make sure that we can bring to every corner of the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple times your experience as Milwaukee County executive. How do you think that would inform the way you govern if you were elected as governor?
Well, as county executive, I represent 19 different municipalities, cities and villages of all different sizes. And as anyone can imagine in this state, there isn't a one size fits all that works for our entire county as well. Each community has its own personality and it has its own unique needs as well. And so what we've been able to deliver are cuts across all of these different municipalities here in Milwaukee County. Things like affordable housing, things like access to mental health services, and making sure that people don't fall through the cracks when they're getting these accesses. And so the relationships that we have built locally, we need to do that across this state, making sure that we're locking in arms, pushing forward together, because that's what this campaign is going to be about. I'm looking to be the governor for all of us, not just of Milwaukee County, but for everybody. And I want folks to know that I'm going to deliver for them all across this state because we've already done so by working with the state legislature to bring resources back to every community.
Yeah, so I also wanted to ask you, Governor Evers has been in office since 2019. You both come from the same party, but are there any issues you would have handled differently from the way he has?
Governor Evers, his entire time being governor, he has been working with a divided government. And it's very difficult to get things through with a divided government. As the top Democrat, he has been a wonderful goalie in making sure that the Republicans don't pass any more harmful policies that affect communities across this state, and been able to push policies that absolutely benefit everyone. And so, it looks messy, and it is messy when you have a divided government. But if you pair not only winning this governor's seat with the opportunity that we have in 2026 to flip the state Senate, to flip the state assembly, that gives Democrats a real chance to push policies that's going to benefit every community across this state. making sure that our public schools are fully funded, making sure that they have access to affordable and accessible health care, making sure affordable and attainable housing has the opportunity to be built in communities across this state. If we focus on all of those things, we'll be able not only to continue Governor Evers' legacy, but we'll be able to build on it moving.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask before we wrap things up, is there anything that you want people to know who are listening about yourself or your campaign?
Well, I want everybody to know that I'm looking to be the governor of all of us. The issues that we have tackled here in Milwaukee County affect all of our communities. We need more affordable housing. We need to cut prices and make sure that all communities across this state are getting more money in their pockets. And I know folks are tired of politicians who talk big and deliver small, who want to focus on the culture wars and partisan fights. This campaign is going to be about delivering results. People don't want to focus on what's going on throughout this process. They want to know, what are we going to do to make sure that they can thrive and the American dream is available for them? And that's what this campaign is going to be about. So whether you're a Democrat, independent, or Republican, there is room to be a part of this movement. So please visit my website, crowley4wi.com, to learn more. You can sign up, you can donate, you can volunteer, but we're asking you to be a part of this.
All right. Thank you again so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, thank you for listening to the podcast this week. If you want to learn more about the gubernatorial race in Wisconsin, you can head to our website at wispolitics.com. In the meantime, I'm Kate Morton. Thanks for tuning in to WisPolitics Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.